So thank you for accepting the interview. And yeah, do you mind introducing yourself a little bit, please?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me. So it's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Eliseu, or Eliseu Jr., because I have the same name as my father. Not everyone knows that. In Poland, it's not that obvious. But yeah, I was born and raised in Brazil, and yeah, I've been living in Poland already for 3.5 years. So before I lived in Germany, in Austria, and in Italy. And
Mm.
yeah, and languages have been part of my life for the past 11 years.
Wow. And how did that passion start 11 years ago?
Well, I would say that there was the moment that I noticed, and there was the moment that I didn't notice. So I would say that before I was playing basketball, and back then we didn't have a lot of opportunities like today to watch matches or the news in English,
Mm-hmm.
in Portuguese. So everything was in English back then.
Yeah.
And I remember that I had to watch these things in English if I wanted to know what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I was having a lot of input in English. I was having contact with my first foreign culture for the first time, but I was not
Mm-hmm.
noticing it. That's why I said that
Yeah.
it's the moment that I noticed the spark was when I finished high school and I wanted to visit a friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine that had moved with his family to Vienna, to Austria. And I
Yeah.
wanted to start learning German. And my dad bought me a book that I didn't know back then what Asimil was, but my dad bought me this book. And I started learning German by myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that in just in a couple of months, I had learned more German than I had learned English like in school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the difference was huge. So I thought,
Wow.
so the problem was not me. It's not like I do not have a talent. The problem is the method was not good. So if I improve the
Um,
method, if I study it and improve it, I can learn even quicker.
mm-hmm.
And then I started. I was learning German, and then 1 year later I started with Spanish. Then 1 year after that, Italian. And I was always trying to improve the method and trying new methods, trying to see how it worked. And yeah, that's how it it started with languages. Yeah, but I would say as well, when I went to visit my friend for the first time in Vienna, was the first time that for a Brazilian was a little bit shocking to see so many people from different cultures communicating
Mm-hmm.
mostly in German, but they knew things about their countries and they knew
Yeah.
some expressions in each other's languages.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in love when I saw that. I said I want also to get to know different languages about different cultures, and I found out that the
Oh,
best way to learn about different cultures is through the languages. So yeah,
yes.
that motivated me to choose the languages I wanted to learn
Mm-hmm.
and to to start the journey that I started back then.
Yeah. So you were able to experience Austria in a more profound level because you spoke German?
Well, I would say that Austria, Vienna especially, is a very specific case because I think half of the city is not Austrian. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of foreigners that actually usually speak uh, Hochdeutsch, so standard
Mm-hmm.
German.
Yeah.
And back then, as like my first long experience abroad, I didn't know how to get to know the locals.
Mm-hmm.
So I did like the easiest path. I chose to hang out with Latinos, mostly Brazilians
Oh
and
yeah.
Hispanic people, and I was always
Yeah.
among them. Of course, I regretted it later.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved to Poland, I decided to do the opposite, like to
Oh,
avoid that and to try to not make the same mistake, I would say.
yeah. It's it's the best if you could immerse yourself into the culture and language, but if you keep hanging out with people from your country, you're not going to
Yes.
have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
Also
what
because
are the
there's the
lang yes,
cultural shock, right? The cultural difference,
yeah.
the barrier. So if for me it was something new, I didn't know how to break the cultural barrier to actually use German with the locals.
Um, yeah. So, what are the languages that you speak?
Well, honestly, I don't know if you have seen the post that I shared recently that I speak seven
Yeah.
languages. Of course, nowadays I say that I speak seven languages, which are Portuguese, English, Italian, German for French, uh, Polish, and Russian.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I speak other languages, but I just dropped in as my New Year's resolution to speak fewer languages, but better because
Yeah.
of,
What's
yeah.
the
So,
reason behind that? You just want to improve on languages that
yes,
you speak already?
but I would say that there was something that changed completely my approach. So I was
Hmm.
already wondering, and I read the book by Luca Lamparello,
Yeah, yeah.
and he was talking about habits. He was talking about these things, and I was thinking like, wow, I can many things I learned in that book. I noticed that I could introduce in my life, but not only for languages.
Hmm.
And I wanted to try something new as well. And I remember a phrase that I heard from the Brazilian polyglot Patrick Lencastre, that he said, "No matter, doesn't matter how many languages you speak, it matters what you do with them."
Yeah.
And it was missing for me a little bit of the purpose, like what am I doing with the language? Of course, I have a podcast, I do all of it, I teach and so on. I work in German, for example, but still
Oh.
I want I it was like missing the reason, like what am I doing with the languages? I didn't know.
Mm.
And so I decided to try something that I wanted to do for a long time, which was stand-up comedy. And I
Mm-hmm.
started doing it last year, and I noticed I want to do that in different languages. But to do that in
Wow.
different languages, I need to have a higher level.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to improve the languages and keep them in a higher level. This seven, I want to try
Yeah.
to do stand-up comedy in all the seven languages.
But you do that in Poland, so your audience must be Polish. So, or there
No,
could be some foreigners, but yeah.
I would say like Polish people are around like 30% of the audience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
So
in
the
which
audience is very
languages
international.
did you do your performance or stand-up comedy?
Yeah, so far I've done only in English because I started like 2 months ago, but I am planning to do that in 2 months in Polish.
Yeah.
And if I travel, I would try to do that in and also in different languages if I have the opportunity, especially in Italy or in Germany. So yeah, I would love to try.
Oh, okay. And so you're working on the languages that you already know, so you're not learning any new languages.
No, I mean, of course, like as polyglots, we always have this, oh, I would love to start learning this language. So
Yeah.
recently I've been thinking a lot about maybe start learning Turkish. But when I think
Yeah.
about my current priorities, like I want to perform in Polish and I have the goal to perform in Russian next year. So I need to improve these
Wow.
languages and I need to
Yeah.
start consuming more content, learn a little bit
Yeah.
about the humor, how
Yeah.
what kind of comedy they do. So I think, of course, we always want to start learning a new language, but I think I would just keep improving these languages I already speak,
Mm. Okay,
unless my
that's good.
priorities
Mm.
change. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in addition to stand-up comedy, were you able to use your languages in your career? Or do you work directly with languages or
Yeah. Also, I work for some content creators
yeah,
with courses, like creating courses, and I also teach languages.
yeah,
But my main job, I have like a corporate job, and I work in German for German banks.
yeah.
And yeah, so German is the main language at my work. So yeah, and has been like German has been the most useful language I've learned, and the one that has
Oh.
opened more doors for me, especially in when it comes to the career and corporate jobs.
Hmm. So you think speaking German helped you get that job?
Yeah, 100%. All the jobs I got in Poland were because I could speak German
Wow.
or other languages as well, but always German.
Are there a lot of German companies in Poland? Is that why? Or
Yeah, I believe so because in Poland, the fact that we do not use euro like we were discussing
yeah.
earlier,
Hmm.
and the taxes are also lower in comparison with other
Yeah.
countries. So many German companies they prefer to be here. You have a lot of German speakers, like Polish people that speak German, and I think for them it's very profitable.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of companies, you have a lot of job in Poland in general, especially if you speak languages. So for me, it has never been difficult to find a job here.
Oh, okay. And how did you find out about the polyglot community and how long have you been involved in it?
Well, I have my podcast, so
Yeah.
LingoCast,
Hmm.
and I started that as a solo podcast.
Yeah.
And when I started that, I was trying to also follow other people some people I already knew, I was already following, but I started to get to know a little bit more. And I remember the first person that was known in the community that's accepted to give me an interview when I started doing the interviews was Patrick Lancastri. And I had this idea that I took from another podcast that at the end I always in the end I always ask, who would you like to see in LingoCast in the future episodes? So people, they were giving me names. Sometimes I knew, sometimes they didn't, and they were
Mm.
usually trying to help me to get this person in the podcast, like
Mm-hmm.
um, reaching to this person and say, look, I gave this interview. This guy was nice. The podcast is interesting. So I started to get one person like after the other in the community like that. Um, and I remember, I think the first contact I had with someone from the community, which is a very interesting story, was with Lucas Bighetti. I think you know him
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I liked his videos, and his videos helped me a lot when I moved to Poland and I started learning my first Slavic language.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know why he stopped doing the videos. Like he stopped recording and uploading videos. So I sent him a message on Facebook, and he replied, and he told me, "Can I call you?" And he called me. And back then it was happening like a lot of things in his life, like very hard moment for him. And we were talking often, so he was calling me every time in a different language. But yeah, it was also a very interesting experience I had, and I told him about the idea of having the podcast, and he really encouraged me to do that, and and then I started, and
Mm-hmm.
so since then, also he was the person that encouraged me to go to my first polyglot gathering. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that it was in Warsaw, but I was not planning to go, and he encouraged me to do that. He said, "You need to go; it will change your life, it will
Yeah.
change your project," and
Yeah.
yeah, and I did. I went, and hey, it did change my life.
When was that? Warsaw, so was that 2 years ago,
2 years
2022?
ago. Yeah,
Okay,
two
that
years
was
ago.
the first gathering for me as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So how did it kind of change your life or your perspectives?
yeah. I think mostly for networking,
Yeah.
to get to know people that some of them I knew only from YouTube, or also the fact that they got to know who I am, or some of them they had heard
Yeah.
about my podcast, others they didn't. So I started to get to know people. Like the second time I've been to Polyglot Gathering, some people already knew who I was.
Yeah.
So it was different. And
Mm,
yeah, so to really become a part of the community, I think going to my first polyglot gathering played an extremely important role.
exactly. Yeah. The same thing happened for me. Then how did you find out about HYPIA? Well, this is a HYPIA interview. So yeah.
Hmm. I think I've seen some posts. I was following them on Instagram, but I've seen already some posts because some of my friends, like Fabricio, for example,
Yeah.
they were already part of Hypia back then.
Yeah.
And I always found interesting, like wow, like I was getting to know new people that were joining Hypia on Instagram, on Facebook, the post, and I said, "Wow, that's interesting. There is a community where people communicate, they share ideas, and yeah, I think would be cool to apply." And I interviewed Laura, so Laura
Yeah.
Ohms from the Catalan girl.
Hmm.
She told me a little bit more about, look, you can send an email, you can apply, you need this and that, and yeah, after some time I said, okay, I will try. I made the application. I sent like the link from my podcast, and yeah, I joined the community.
Oh, okay. So have you been doing anything special within HYPIA or any activities that you've been doing?
Well, so far no, but I know that I have the opportunity to join to like get to know people in person. Always when we meet like in the polyglot
Yeah.
events, so people mention, oh, I'm also from Hypia. This person is from Hypia, so we know each other and we have
Yeah.
the group, so we can share
Yeah.
some ideas. But I haven't attended anything specifically.
Yeah. We took a picture together last year at the gathering. The HYPIA members, remember?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's like
Yeah.
I think um yeah, I believe so, but I don't remember exactly the picture right now. But I remember that we took like a lot of pictures. I took a lot of pictures with many of the members.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also wanted to ask you, what what do languages mean in your life?
Yeah, I always say that I'm not a big fan of languages itself, so because I always see the languages
Oh,
to access cultures,
Culture.
and then
Yeah.
cultures is are the things that I'm interested in. But
Okay.
it wouldn't be possible without languages. So
Mm-hmm.
once I think it was Lucas who told me, like, if you go to a country and do not speak the language, it's like reading a book that has only images. And I feel that like
Oh,
your experience with languages, it allows you to have a much deeper experience. So when I wanted to really get to know a culture for whatever reason, languages, they allow me to do that. So I don't love languages, but I love what they allow me to do. So and get becoming like a more international person, more multicultural person.
yeah.
I believe that had made me a better human being.
Oh, that's interesting that you say you're not interested in languages itself, I mean themselves, but rather culture. But yeah, I agree. It's a completely different experience if you speak the language and you get to connect with people very deep, on a deeper level, for sure.
100%, yeah. And also,
Yeah.
because I say that because I'm not the guy who will see me like discussing like, oh, the accusative case means that, and in that language is that. I mean, I'm not very interested in like the grammar itself, but I'm more
Mm,
interested in the content actually, like the pop culture, the
yeah.
movies, the songs that I
Mm,
can listen and
mm,
watch in that language.
yeah.
And so for me, this is more interesting than actually the structure of the language itself.
Okay. So how do you approach a new language? How do you usually learn languages?
Well, I think it depends on what language, right? So according to
Mm-hmm.
my background, so I first will my first question to myself is what my goal with this language is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if I want to learn this language just for fun, uh, it's one thing. If I want to learn this language to communicate with people, it's another thing. If I want to learn the language to perform stand-up comedy, it's different
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I need to bear in mind that like what I'm going to do. So then I start setting my plan with what how I'm going to do that. Um, I think my approach would be I would start with phonetics. I would start taking a look and the sounds of the language to see if there is
Mm-hmm.
something I had never seen before.
Yeah.
I would not try to learn it. I would just take a look, and then when I start immersing myself, I will start noticing this things that I
Mm-hmm.
saw. Um, because I believe that if we do not if we are not able to recognize a sound, we will never notice it, and we will adapt
Mm-hmm.
it, and we create this foreign accent. So this is the first step for me. Then I try to go with frequent words and frequent phrases, try to get familiar with them,
Mm-hmm.
and with also always a lot of input. So I try to get familiar with the phrases, the questions, the answers, and the words, and like 20% of the time, and the 80% of the time I go with input. I will watch movies with subtitles. I will try to identify all the things I've seen in different
Mm-hmm.
contexts to observe that. And for me, one of the most important things is having a language partner that I
Yeah.
talk weekly. So for almost all
Oh, okay.
languages, in this moment I do not have for all of them. For my life is crazy, but I try to have for almost all the languages a person that I will talk weekly that
Mm-hmm.
can provide me feedback, because we know that when you talk with a native speaker or with your friends, they will not be correcting you,
Mm-hmm.
they will not be giving you feedback. So in order to have this feedback, I need like a language partner that will take notes, that will write in a
Mm-hmm.
document the words they didn't know, the things I wanted to say but I
Oh,
couldn't. So it helps me a lot, and start doing the language exchange like this completely changed my results with languages.
wow. So weekly talk with a
Yeah,
friend.
weekly talk.
Wow.
Yeah, so I can mention like some of my of people that I have done language
Yeah.
exchange that I learned a lot with was with Vinny from Let's Dots. I
Yeah.
think you've met
Mm-hmm.
him.
Yeah.
So he introduced me a lot to the concept because he was already doing that before. So we have a Google Sheets file, and in the file, in the first 30 minutes, we were speaking like French, and the other 30
Yeah.
minutes German. So when he was speaking German, I was not interrupting him. I was taking notes and
Oh.
writing the words that he didn't know. So if he didn't know a word, I would try to he would say in another language, and I will write in order not to
Mm-hmm.
interrupt. So he could develop this fluency, could develop the confidence to speak
Mm-hmm.
the language. Because for me, the language partner is like the training and when you speak with the native speakers, it's like the game.
Oh,
The,
wow, that's cool. I find the concept interesting because Vinny is also Brazilian, so he's not native in German nor other languages, right? But we're able to
yeah.
correct each other. And I think that works better if you're not a native speaker because you learn the grammar yourself and you can explain it,
Yes,
as opposed to
100%.
native speakers, they don't know because they just grew up speaking it.
100%. Unless, for example, my Polish language partner is Anya from the channel Płynie po polsku. So she's a
Mm.
teacher, so she's able to explain. She has been teaching a lot of people from many different countries, so she has seen these people going through the process. But usually,
Mhm.
as you said, native speakers they have acquired the language when they were really young,
Yeah.
and they like in my case, like Vinny and we have both the same native language, so learning German and French with being through the same path. So we know the
Hmm.
mistakes, we know the
Oh,
challenges, so for it's much
yeah.
easier to correct. But of course, having language exchange with a native speaker has also its advantages. You can get some hints about the culture,
Yeah.
about geography, politics, or
Yeah.
whatever.
And pronunciation also.
Pronunciation, especially, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I also wanted to ask, do you plan to stay in Poland for a long time, or do you want to go to a
Well,
different country?
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't found a city that I like more than I like Warsaw for many reasons. So I feel very comfortable here in Warsaw. I would say I would probably not live in another Polish city, but in Warsaw, I started to feel home. But as
Um,
I said, I will be traveling and I will see if I will find another place where I would feel comfortable. I would have this willing okay, I want to see how life is here and I want to try it. But so far Warsaw has been my favorite, and yeah, is a place that I'm currently calling home.
hmm. Warsaw is, yeah, I think it's a nice place to live in. But also Polish. I heard Polish is a very hard language to learn. How did you learn Polish?
Well, as I mentioned before, when in Austria, I had the experience that I didn't connect a lot of Austrian people. So when
Yeah.
I moved to Poland, I wanted to do everything in a different way. I wanted
Hmm.
to provide myself with a different experience. So I said I need to learn the language. So if I will learn the language, I will probably have a better opportunity to connect with Polish people. I
Hmm.
know I needed to be out of my comfort zone to do that, and it wouldn't be easy. So I try to do that from day one
Yeah.
to learn Polish and to try to use what I was learning with people from work, with people on the street, and so on. And I learned Polish every day for at least 40 minutes for 1 year. So my first
Wow.
year, I was doing that every single day, every morning, waking up at 5 and doing that.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah, I did it for 1 year, and then on my birthday, 1 year later, I started learning Russian. They also helped me with my Polish. Also helped me to connect with people here. There are a lot of Russian speaking people.
Yeah.
And but still, I didn't have the language partner. I would say that with Polish again, when I started having the language partner, that gave me the confidence to speak with native
Hmm.
speakers. It changed also the game because I interviewed a girl that was a teacher.
Yeah.
She invited me for her birthday party, and I went there, and everyone was speaking Polish. And I
Hmm.
remember that was the first time that I actually had to speak Polish with native speakers for real, only native speakers without any help, only Polish.
Hmm.
Then one of the girls said, I have a podcast. Would you like to give an interview? I'm impressed. You speak Polish very well. At first, I thought it was a joke because I had never spoken Polish, like for real.
Oh,
And then I said, well, actually, I can speak Polish. Like I gave an interview to her. It was 2 years ago. And since then, it was the moment I noticed, oh, I can speak Polish. So after that,
wow.
I got the confidence to start speaking Polish and practicing it.
So you studied Polish for 40 minutes every day, but you never spoke Polish.
Yeah, I did
Is
that
that it?
for a year almost,
Yeah.
from August to June, and but I was speaking only in the these short interactions that we need in the daily basis when you're living in the country. So you go
Yeah.
to the shop, or sometimes you need to ask some information, but not like deep conversations, like connecting with
Mm.
people, sitting, talking about. The first time that I started doing that and starting receiving feedback was when I found the language partner. So that was the moment
Oh,
that it changed for me.
I see. Yeah, the fact that you mentioned that you woke up at 5 and then you studied languages, that's one of the points that I have so much respect for polyglots because it's not like we can speak 7 languages just by just watching movies. It's not that. We have to study, right? So it's a lot of dedication, it's a lot of time and effort. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think like there are some things that we cannot escape from them, which is consistency. So we need
yeah.
consistency to learn a language, but you need also patience because I have this feeling. I don't know if you feel the same, but like I did some challenges to try to learn a language in 3 months, and of course, like especially with Ukrainian, I have pretty good results because I'm living in Poland and I could actually practice everything I was learning every day. I could already speak some Russian and could speak Polish, so my results were pretty good. So, but then I noticed that my memory with Ukrainian was like the words they were not very internalized. But
Hmm.
with time, even if I was not learning Ukrainian anymore after that, I was doing like another challenge. I noticed that time was helping these words to get internalized and becoming like a very solid memory for a long term. And I feel that even like when I was learning Chinese last year, I started learning Chinese. I learned Chinese for 3 months,
Hmm.
and I remember after many months the things that I learned for 3 months in Chinese. I think because of time. So I think that for everyone who want to learn languages, I think time plays an important role. And the quickest you will learn a language, the quickest you will forget it.
Yeah.
But if you do it with consistency, of you will be able to internalize the language and all the not all the input you have from the language, not only the language, but the culture, the expressions, the memories you build.
Hmm. Yeah, so one last question that I have for you is well, you mentioned a bit, but what's your advice to people who are starting to learn languages and who are starting their interest in different cultures?
Hmm. I would say that being a polyglot has never been my goal. And I think that
Oh,
actually should not be someone's goal. You should just let it um, let it go, learn the languages,
uh-huh.
have fun, and be patient. Because of course, sometimes as polyglots, when you learn language and you like to do that, you want to learn all the languages you see. So you hear a little bit of one language, say, I want to learn that. I'm interested. I like the culture. But then you need to think language is something that you usually carry with you for a long time that you develop. So you really want to bring this to your life, and so if you really want to do that, if you really see the reasons to do that, so I, if you know why you're learning the languages in that during the hard moments, you will not give up. When you will not have the motivation, you will remember I'm learning this language, and that's the reason.
Hmm.
So because when you are like during the hype, everyone wants to learn, but when
Yeah.
it goes away, you still need these reasons, this motivation, something that I'm learning this language because of that.
Hmm.
And so it's important to have the reasons. And yeah, so that's why I in priorities, right? So I chose my priorities can change. I live in Poland, so for example, Russian has a very important, uh,
Hmm.
very high priority in my life. I have a Russian
Yeah.
speaking girlfriend,
Hmm.
and so it plays an important role. But if something changes in my life and I need to move, my priorities will change, so I can see what's the most important for my life. Because something that I always tell people, not everyone is a professional language learner. Some people they live for
Hmm.
languages, their job is learning languages, making courses, but not everyone's like that. And it's
Yeah.
okay if you do not have the same time, if you will speak fewer languages than these people, because everyone is different. Everyone has different jobs, hobbies, and other things. So yeah, you just need to not compare yourself with others and try to make the best decisions for yourself.
Hmm. Thank you so much for your advice. That's very helpful. So that'll be it for your HYPIA interview. I really enjoyed talking to you, and we look forward to your contribution to the community.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always great to contribute a little bit for the community. So people can always follow my podcast and listen to all the interviews with polyglots and the episodes that we've been recording. Me and Sam. So Sam is now part of the project. So yeah,
Yeah. Thank
thank you
you.
again.